Let's get rolling on a Wednesday. Glasses in session. Go to the Glasser guest line. Check in with Ryan Noonan. Make sure you guys are following Ryan on X at Ryan Noonan. 4 for 4 bets and also Bet Spurts Golf as well. Ryan, great having you on once again this week, man. Excited for the Travelers Championship. Just a little bit of a different setup this week than what we had last week at Oakmont. So what are really the main things that you're looking for this week in the golfers that you're backing at TPC River Highlands?
It's an interesting track, PJ. I mean, could not be more different, obviously, than Oakmont. We've seen such a wide variety of winners here historically, and it's only been a signature event for the last couple of years. So obviously the field strength has improved pretty drastically. But you go back a handful of years, this is a spot where Ches Reavie and Dustin Johnson won back-to-back years. Could not have different skill sets. And that's kind of what we typically see at Pete Dye Designs. This is a Pete Dye track. We have a lot of them on court on the tour. TPC Sawgrass, Harbortown, that we play the week after the Masters, where they tend to be designed to mitigate distance, a little bit more strategy off the tee, significantly less driver usage off the tee. So you get a lot of spots where a lot of holes, guys are playing from the same spot in the fairway. So you got to be really dialed in here. Birdies in bunches. This is a spot where there's a pretty significant missed fairway penalty. So similar, I guess, to Oakmont last week, you need to kind of be in the fairway or be in the right spot. But it becomes a wedge fest and a putting contest. And, while those aren't always thrilling, it's kind of been a great event. Like the weekend's always great. We had a lot of playoffs here. It's a tough finishing stretch. So I think we'll have a pretty interesting week.
I'm with you. That back nine at the Travelers, I always love. A lot of drama. It's going to be a birdie fest, low numbers. Guy that I probably like the best this week, Ryan, is going to be Justin Thomas. You mentioned Pete Dye Golf Course. We saw him won at Harbortown. He's 25-1 at BetMGM. Are you with me this week on JT? Is he somebody that you like?
Yeah, he's kind of one of my favorites. I guess, if you're shopping in the non-Scotty market, you just want to take Scotty head on this week. JT ranked second for me in some of the data modeling that I did this week. Obviously love some of these wedge fests. He's one of the best wedge players historically since he's been a PGA Tour pro. Less than driver can suit him well as well here because, sometimes he can get a little wayward off the tee with the big stick. So clubbing down suits him well. One at Harbortown, another Pete Dye track we played here a couple months ago. So yeah, I would very much like him at the very top of the board. My favorite at the top of the board, and again, I'm mostly just hanging out in terms of outrights in the non-Scotty market. Early in the week, those are pretty competitive prices, and even some of those are better than where they have closed. Russell Henley. I love Russell Henley in spots like this where his lack of distance isn't really punished a ton. Not a great history at this venue, which is kind of surprising. Hasn't played here a ton. T6 back in 2018. But these spots where, he's got to be playing from the fairway, wedges, good drive percentage. These are all things that, rank really well for him. Outside of Scotty and Justin Thomas, looking back at the last 2 years on strokes gained total short and very short golf courses with easy scoring additions, Russell Henley's third for me this week. So love him 35-1, 30-1 or so without Scotty. I love Russ this week.
I love it. What are you doing with Sam Burns this week, Ryan? He's the one I'm most torn on because, the game is obviously there, right? He easily could have won the last two events that he's played. He's probably the hottest putter in the world. The irons are looking really good. But, mentally, if you're Sam Burns, you've come that close 2 times in a row, especially winning your first major. Can he get it going again this week? Where are you with Burns at 30-1?
It's a tough ask. Not going to be on any card for me this week, and not for any particular reason. Just I think there is something to the mental drain of being in contention 4 days in a major, somewhat coughing one up in Canada the week before. Obviously we like the form. Form is great. If you wanted to throw a finishing position bet again, 72 man field and no cut, so it kind of changes the math of how those things work a little bit this week. But yeah, Burnsy. I like that he's playing well. Would love to see him continue to play well, work himself into the back end of that Ryder Cup team with some form. Could use his skill set there for sure. As you mentioned, probably the best putter on tour right now. But I'm going to sit out this week on Burns.
There are a few events every year, Ryan, where Patrick Cantlay just shows up and he just contends every year, right? It's the Memorial, it's Harbortown like we were talking about earlier, and it's the Travelers. 7 straight years, he's finished in the top 15. Anything with Cantlay, just a placement bet with him? Would you look outright market? Any thoughts on him?
It's really hard when we do this. You want to let, trends or, the data kind of, drive some decisions for us. It's probably the right way to do it. Occasionally you just have a guy that just is not your guy and just doesn't end up really ever being on my card. Not that I'm anti-Cantley. Again, would love to see him in the Ryder Cup team and do a bunch of stuff for us when we get there later in the year. But Cantley's just not a guy for me that I love to bet. Hard to argue with his track record on these kind of bent Northeast POA tracks. He's fared really well here historically. So I understand why people will be on it. But just the price is just a little too short for a guy that really hasn't won in 3 years since I think Caves Value, the BMW in 2022, but really just doesn't even taste in any Sunday smoke. Like, it's not like he's in it and gagging any away. He's just not really there. He'll pop and have like a fantastic round. Sometimes it's the first round, but it's just not a guy that's been in contention enough for me to pay the prices that he's going off the board at.
Yeah, totally makes sense. We're talking with Ryan Noonan here on Send It In. Make sure you guys are following Ryan on X at Ryan Noonan. Ryan, who are some other golfers that you like this week? Maybe somebody down the board, some long shots. You mentioned you like JT, you like Russell Henley, obviously Scotty at the top of the board. Anybody else maybe worth taking a flyer on this week?
Kind of in the Sam Burns light. This is a guy that has a similar skill set and profile that has actually been in the mix the last couple of weeks, maybe not quite as grueling or mentally. It's Cam Young. Cam Young, I've not been a Cam Young guy historically. I was on him at Canada, a T4, followed up with a T4 again last week. The putter's doing a lot of the work, but another spot where clubbing down can serve him well. Really likes putting here as well. 59 on Saturday last year. Like him quite a bit, 40-1 without Scheffler. Finishing position markets. He's also really interesting first round, a positional bet too. He's got some pretty massive AM PM splits in terms of his first round scoring over the last calendar year, and he's going off at like 10 a.m. for the tee time. So, Cam Young, top 20 round one, I think is a bet that's, I'm willing to look at here. But he also, finishing positions, top 10. I think he's in the mix as well. I'm going with a couple of historically really good putters because I think it's going to matter here. Obviously, when you're taking on Scotty in this top of the line field, you have to have some guys that have some legit ceiling with the flat stick. Mav McNeely, 45-1 is of interest to me. He's played well on some of these shorter tracks, top 5 finishes this year, including Harbortown, which we talked about, the RBC Heritage, and then some other tracks where off the tee play really mattered, where you need to keep the ball in play in the fairway. The Genesis, which we played at Torrey Pines this year, big, thick, rough, obviously a different ballpark, a little bit longer for sure. Same thing with Memorial, a little bit more distance, but you have to keep yourself in play at Muirfield Village. Outside of, some guys that missed the cut, all the cut makers last week, Mav was third in strokes gained off the tee in gain through distance and accuracy. So like him, Denny McCarthy. Denny, I think, is in play. Significant longer shot, triple digits if you're taking on Scotty. I think you can find 70 in the without Scotty market. Also a first round leader play. I think he's in the mix as well. We know Denny can get absolutely white hot with the putter. T8 at the PGA Championship, and then has historically played pretty well at P-Dye setups as well. So I like Denny down the board too.
Love it. Anybody on the other side of the coin, Ryan? Anybody look to fade this week that you're maybe targeting in matchups, maybe betting them to miss the cut? Or there's no cut this week, so anybody matchups or somebody that you just have no interest in this week?
Yeah, I guess it would have been Cantley, just because I think he's going to get some matchup spots against some of the other top elite guys that I think he's probably a tier below. No other guys that I'm actively against. I'm willing to kind of throw out anything Oakmont related for some guys, like a confirmation bias if you played well and I want to bet on you, but I'm also comfortable throwing out the bad performances from a Shane Lowry or a Sepp Straka or anything like that. Those guys probably, were able to get to Connecticut a little bit earlier and kind of wash away what happened in Pennsylvania for them. So I'm not really worried about anything that happened there with them. But no one that I'm kind of going out of the way to target. Maybe Cantley would be the one based off of where I would think he'll be matchup price-wise.
Ryan, before I let you go, we obviously got one major left, the Open Championship at Royal Portrush. That market is open. People are already firing away or some bets. Anybody that you're targeting, you thought maybe there was a good price, some good value on anybody that you're taking at the Open?
I'd love to dig in a little bit early. This is the one where I sit out, BJ, because this is one that we've seen it historically. We saw it even last year, where the weather wave can be so dramatic. It makes such a difference. And you can have some great CLV, pick off a bad line, and by the time we get to Portrush next month, that could be completely dead based off of weather that we see the week before. So that's kind of the one that I do sit out in terms of jumping in early, because I've been victim of, feeling pretty good about some CLV, which, matters less in golf outright betting than probably anywhere else anyway. But at the same time, you hate to have a ticket that's just absolutely dead because your guy's going to get washed away with the weather.
No, makes a lot of sense. I think that's some great advice. Ryan Noonan, 4for4 Bets, BetSperts Golf. Give him a follow on X at Ryan Noonan. Ryan, always great talking golf with you, man. Enjoy the travels. We'll catch up again soon.
You got it, PJ. Let's win some bets this week.
Yes, sir.